Hi, Sarah Brown from Keller-Brown Insurance Services. I'm here with Evans Fishel of H Fishel and Associates. We recently acquired Evans' business. It's been in business for 70 years in the Red Line community. And through this process, I just really enjoyed listening to some of Evan's stories, and I thought it would be a good thing to get on camera. He has a wealth of information. He can spin a good yarn, so I wanted to get on, and I thought people also might enjoy it. So here we go. So, Evans, can you tell me what you were doing before you started working in the agency?
Well, actually, Red Line's known for its tobacco industry, and I worked in basically a tobacco factory. I graduated from high school, went to college 1 year. That didn't work out too well, so I worked in the tobacco factory for 2.5 years. During that period of time, I decided I didn't want to do this the rest of my life. My dad was in the insurance business, so I sat down and talked to him and told him I'd be interested in coming in the insurance business. He said, well, he'd like to have me, but I'd have to go back to school. So I did.
Wow.
So I left work and went back to Goldie Beacom College, graduated there in '62, and came into the agency full-time in 1962, and I've been here up until April of this year.
April of 62, okay. Do you remember anything particular about that year? Does anything stand out?
Not really. I can't think of anything. I worked in the agency prior to that because the school was down in Wilmington, so I came home every Friday, Saturday, and went back Sundays. So I got to work in the office Friday nights and Saturdays. So I actually started my insurance business back in September of 1961.
Okay.
And got my license in 1961. In the summer of '61, I got my property and casualty license. And I tell this story because today everything's computerized. Back then, the examination was 50% multiple choice, 25% true and false, 25% essay questions. And then after I got out of school in '63, I took my broker's license. At that time, you had to take a separate broker's license. Now then, when you're licensed in property and casualty, you're automatically a broker. And then in '64 is when I got my life license.
Okay. When did you get married?
1964.
Okay, all right.
So I was in, I'm sorry, '63.
Uh-oh.
My wife's the one that can't remember dates. But no, 1963. So I was in the insurance business for 1 year prior to, and I like to mention that then our office was open from 8:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, and Saturdays from 8:30 to 4:30.
Oh my gosh.
And I was expected to be in the office most of that time.
Wow.
So when I got married, my wife knew I wasn't going home a whole lot.
Yeah. You basically lived here almost.
Well, just about.
Yeah.
Now at that time, the office was down on South Main Street. It was part of my dad's house. He had built a piece onto the house and had his office in there. And that office there was smaller than my office is right here.
Wow.
So when we had a secretary in there and my dad was in there, I worked in the living room.
Now, you said, I remember your wife worked with you at times. And tell me about that, and also the big rating binders that she had to get.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, she started in 1979 when our children were in school, and she started working here then part-time. She would come in at 9 o'clock in the morning and leave at 3 in the afternoon so she could be home when the kids got home from school. And then as they got older, then she started working full-time 8:30 to 5. And it was, she took care of the accounts receivable and so forth. And we had binders that were very heavy. In fact, I still have them here today. They're back there on the shelf as far as that goes. So if someone asked me, if they were insured with us in 1970, I can go back and pull the book out and check that. But anyway, unfortunately, they were kept in a drawer alongside her desk, and she had to bend over to pull those out. And today she has a serious back condition, and she contends it's because of that. Of course, workers' comp's not going to pay her now, but she does have a very serious back condition, and she contends it's because she had to bend over and pick those books up all the time.
Now the injuries are doing this.
Well, she's had carpal tunnel too.
Yeah.
Both hands operate on it.
Oh, man. All right, so insurance has changed a lot over the years. Tell me how you rated a policy in the 60s and 70s and versus today. And I can talk a little bit about today.
Well, then each company had their own rates. Okay, now ISO existed at that time, and ISO would publish rates, and then companies would take those rates and deviate from whatever the ISO rates were. But each company had their own rates, so you had a rating manual for each company that you had, which meant you also had applications for each company you had. You had claim reports for each individual company. Court didn't exist at that time. So every company had their own forms. So you had to keep forms on for each one of those companies. I tell the story because you can't do this today, but back then someone would buy a house, they'd call up and say, hey, I need a homeowner's policy. Fine. How much? Well, I'll pay $25,000 for that. Okay. We got the information where it was, the address and where it was located, township, and then we would sit down, put the policy in a typewriter, type the policy up, tear it apart because you didn't have copy machines then. Everything was in carbon paper, so you always had 3 or 4 copies. Tear it apart, send them a copy, send the company a copy, you keep a copy for yourself, and you bill them. And they would either send you a check or stop in and pay you.
Yeah.
But that was for homeowners, fire insurance. Same with automobile. We typed up our own automobile policies in the office.
Wow.
And we didn't have calculators. You multiplied, subtracted, added all through your head.
And to contrast that a little bit with today, everything's on a computer. I have no idea where the rates come from. They're all behind the scenes. We can't insure a house what you paid for it. You have to do the worksheet for the characteristics of the house. It's based on how much it costs to rebuild. We don't handle billing now. The insurance company handles the billing. So you'd think just putting things into a computer would make it quicker. But I don't know. I think it might have been quicker the way you did it then, just with all the different boxes we have to check and everything. So.
Well, yeah, today it's a lot different because then you didn't have to go out and do an appraisal. You didn't have to take pictures.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, you just took whatever the person tell you. He'd tell you it's 2.5-story frame, 1-story brick. That's what you would put down. You didn't have to go out and inspect it, and you took their word for it as far as the value goes.
Yeah.
But that all changed in 1968 or 69. I think Penn National was the first one that came out and told us we had to take pictures.
Yeah, I want you to talk about that, the camera.
Right. Well, my dad went out. The only camera you really could get then was a Polaroid, and I have that here today. But the Polaroid at that time cost $250. My dad went ballistics on that.
And what did you get paid a week at the time?
Well, when I started, I was making $75 a week.
So $250 for a camera.
Right.
Pretty expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell everybody that the one organization I joined cost the initiation fee was $50, and I had to work a month before I get to $50 in order to pay the initiation fee.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, the camera was, and of course it was black and white, and then you had to put a solution on it because those black and white pictures faded over a period of time, and you would put a smear of solution over it just to maintain that picture. But yeah, my dad asked Penn National if they would pay for the camera, and of course they weren't going to do that.
Yeah, and he wasn't happy about this, was he?
Not at all. But we didn't have to start appraisals until in the 70s.
Okay, all right. Now, when you first started, do you remember what premiums were? Like your annual, yeah.
They were very nominal. I'm trying to think. I ran across a policy my grandfather had, and that was even before my time. I think the policy was written in the late 50s. Anyway, he had 2 vehicles on there. He had full coverage on it, and the bill was less than $100.
Wow, and I bet his liability limits were maybe $25,000, $50,000.
No more than that.
Yeah.
Because we basically wrote 25, 50, and 10.
That might have been good at the time.
It was.
Yeah.
At that time, it was very good.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, when I got a motorcycle, I didn't worry about insurance because you didn't have to have insurance to get tags then. And I didn't worry about it. And my dad took a policy out on it. And I remember it cost $85 a year for that motorcycle. And I was 16 years old.
Wow. Wow.
So, and as far as premium goes, I think it was 1963 or 64. I had a friend of mine that came to me for insurance, and I worked it up. The only thing we had then was assigned risk. I worked it up. It came out to
All right, sorry for that
$1,000.
interruption. We had a client stop in. So we were talking about premiums, and someone walked in.
Right, yeah, I had an individual walk in, and it seems like he had 2 total losses and 1 license suspension. So assigned risk was the only thing. We didn't have special risk then, so we had assigned risk was the only thing. I quoted it up. It came out a shade over $1,000, and I couldn't believe that an automobile policy would cost $1,000 a year, and how you were going to be able to pay for something like that. Today, that's cheap.
Yeah, today it's cheap. I'll tell you, we had somebody this week, or recently, for personal insurance. They had a couple vehicles, a couple accidents. We quoted up in Donegal. Premium was $65,000.
65,000.
We didn't sell that one. For personal auto.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. All right, so you've been the insurance agent for Red Lion Area School District for years. Tell me about how you first wrote the student accident policies.
Okay. Well, actually, my dad started writing the student accident policies back in the early 60s, actually even before I started in the business. Okay, and we wrote it through a company, Royal Insurance Company. And they were out of Mount Vernon, New York. In fact, my dad would drive up there to get the applications.
Drive. Wow.
Drive up to Mount Vernon, pick them up, and bring them down. He didn't want to trust the mails. So what we would do, he would contact the schools. The schools would give him a breakdown of each individual building, the teachers in each one of those, and the number of students in each one of those classes. So we would sit down and put packets together for each one of those schools, and then go around after school started and hand them out to each school. The school would give them to the teachers would hand them out to the kids. Then, and at that time, I think the student accident insurance was maybe 75 cents or $1.
Wow.
It was very cheap.
Gosh.
And so the students would bring the envelopes back into the teacher, give it to the teachers would hand it into the office, and then I would go around and collect these envelopes up from each one of the schools, come back to the office, and we would make a list of all the students and count the money. And then after we had all that done and had the list, then we would write out a check and send it into the insurance company with those applications. I finally convinced my dad we were losing money on it.
Yeah. You remember how long it took just to count all?
No, and unfortunately, the premiums got the total premium got over $1,000, and we had an ag machine that only went up to $1,000 at that time.
Okay.
So we had to add a couple times.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, you just brought up the adding machine. Tell me about when your dad bought a calculator.
Well, he never liked the calculator. He got this little calculator, and it was only, very, very small. It didn't have a battery in it. You had to keep it plugged in. And he had all kinds of problems using that thing. He finally got his 10-key adding machine out, and that's what he used. He didn't want the calculator whatsoever.
Wow.
No, I don't want to back up, but you mentioned about the school insurance.
Yeah.
We've been writing it since 1968.
Wow. Wow.
They put the bid out, the school out for bids, and we wrote it. And at that time, this will really surprise you. At that time, their total premium for property and liability insurance, because that's all you had to have at that time, was $8,500 for the year.
Now, that's like tiny now, but was that big at the time?
Well, that was quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 1968.
Okay.
And that, well, like I say, that included the property liability and the vehicles.
Wow.
That didn't include workers' comp, but those were, and that's the only three things that they had to write in 1968.
Yeah. So they put it out to bid. Tell me about how you guys got it.
Well, the insurance company we used at that time was Commercial Union, and they've changed so many times over the years. They are now Liberty Mutual.
Oh, okay.
And they specialize in school districts.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, we got the bids sent into the company. They came back, and we submitted. And fortunately, we were the low bid, and we've fortunately over the years, each time they bid it, we still come in as a low bidder.
Yeah, but this also says a lot about the relationship. I mean, you must have been doing something right. That's a long time to do business with somebody. So.
Well, we did lose it in 1978. And the reason everyone goes nuts with my dates, but the reason I can remember in 1978 because when they opened the bids for that, I happened to be in Las Vegas. It was our 25th wedding anniversary. We went to Vegas, so I wasn't here for the opening of the bids.
Yeah.
And we weren't low, and we lost it for a year and a half.
Okay.
And then we got it back, and we've had it since.
I bet that hurt to lose that.
That really bothered me.
Yeah.
I even called from Vegas to see how we made out.
Oh. That probably ruined your trip.
Not really, but I was afraid that might happen.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I say, we got it back then.
Yeah. Wow. It's impressive. All right. So technology is always costly, and your first computer and printer were no exception. So, talk to me about the first computer and the printer and their costs.
Okay. In 1982, I attended a number of seminars on computers, and the number one company at that time for insurance was Redshaw out of Pittsburgh. And the word PC did not exist. You had to buy a mini computer system. And at that time, the number one mini system was Wang. So we bought that. The total cost on that, including the hardware and the software, was $42,000. Which was a lot of money in 1982, I want to tell you.
That's a lot of money now, but still,
Right.
back in 1982.
But give you an example, the terminals, of course, were dumb terminals because they were plugged into the main frame. Those dumb terminals cost $3,500 each. The pen printer was humongous,
Yeah.
and slow as molasses, it cost $4,500.
Oh my God! And did you get the computer and printer at the same time?
We got it all at one time.
Did you have to get a loan for it?
Yes.
Wow.
Fortunately, the loan, I kept it in-house. My mother loaned me the money.
Okay. Did you pay her back?
Well, she got paid back full.
Oh man. So, and just describe what a pen printer is, because people may not know.
Well, a
that
pen
now.
printer, if you take a piece of paper like this, okay, it had on either side, okay, it was perforated, and then there was little holes going down, and that would fit into the printer, and that's what pushed it through the printer. And then whenever you took it out of there, then it was perforated, and you tear those edges off.
And the sheets of paper you had, it was one solid sheet with perforated where it
Right.
would cut too. Yeah.
So the program had to be set up that it would only print per sheet.
Yeah. And it would print each line like that. That's what took so
Right.
long. Yeah. All right. So earlier you told me the office hours that were pretty long. Tell me about the time you were at the office at 1 a.m. and you wrote a policy for a police officer that stopped in. That was a cute story.
Right. Well, as Sarah said, I was involved in the community and so on, so there was a lot of days I didn't get a whole lot of insurance work done during the day. So I'd have to go back at night to make that up. And usually Friday nights, I always was in the office Friday nights or maybe 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And one night I happened to be in the office at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was a rap at the door, and I went there, the police officers were standing there. And I unlocked the door and left him in. He said, "Hey," he said, "you're up working?" "Yeah." He said, "You want to do any business?" "Yeah, I can do business anytime." He said, how about quoting my auto and my home? So I did. I ended up writing it for him. So I tell people, hey, we write insurance 24/7.
That's cute. Tell me about your dad, the agency founder. What was it like to work with him?
He was great. I want to tell you. Like I say, he actually started in the insurance business in 1941. When the war broke out, he was working at York Corporation, so he was exempt from the draft, but he had a friend who was in the insurance business that got drafted. So he ran his agency for 4 years while he was in the service. And
did he do that full time, or was
he did that in the evenings and weekends.
Wow.
He still worked at York Corporation and then worked every evening and weekends. And then in 1945, the fellow came back. He took over the agency, and my father got into State Farm. He worked for State Farm for a year, or maybe 2 years, and he was even like a district manager for him. And he didn't like that, so in 1947 he started up his own business, an independent agency. And in 1948, I got a copy of the letter here. Penn National, and I might mention that Penn National is a short name. Its original name at that time was Pennsylvania Thrashmen's and Farmers Mutual Casualty Insurance Company.
I didn't know
or
that.
PTF for short. And they were that until 1964 when they changed their, became Penn National. But anyway, he got a letter from them that they would not license any other agent south of York without his permission.
Wow.
That lasted for a few years.
So it was good to work. You liked working with him.
Yeah, my dad, and he was in here. He's the one that would work at night. He and I were in here a lot of nights at 9, 10 o'clock. Now then, we had shortened our hours. During the 60s, we started closing at 5 o'clock on Wednesdays. Then we started closing. By 1970, we were only open Mondays and Friday nights to 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And then when the bank started closing at 8, we went back to 8 o'clock. So we were open then Mondays and Friday nights to 8 o'clock up through, well, in 1980, I stopped the Monday nights being open, and we're just open Friday nights and then Saturday mornings from 9 to 12 is what. But working with him was great. I mean, and everybody really enjoyed him. And I was here, and I can tell you exactly when it was. It was the night of Dave's birthday, July the 5th, 1978. He and I were both here in the office working, and about 10 o'clock I said, I'm going home. He said, okay. And I left, and about 1 o'clock in the morning he called me. He said, hey, he said, I fell off the office. He said, I hurt my back. He said, I need pain pills. And he said, the doctor, I called him, and you can go get them. So the doctor lived close by, so I went and got pain pills, took them down to him, and he was in pain. And he took those, and next morning I stopped down to check on him. My mother said, well, he was up most of the night, but he finally went to sleep. I said, okay. So I left and came to the office, opened up the office and so on. And an hour later she called and told me that she thought he had died, and he did. And unfortunately, he had an aneurysm in the aorta, and he bled to death overnight, never knowing it. So it was a huge loss. I want to tell you, like I say, we worked together for 16 years, and it was great.
Yeah, unexpected.
Yeah, and the one thing, I wasn't home hardly at all, and he'd be in the office working here, and my wife, I'll tell you, to this day, she still misses it. But he would call her like at 9:30 at night and say, "Are you holding down the fort yourself?" He knew dang well I wasn't home, so, but he called her, 1, 2, 3 nights a week.
Just to make sure she was okay?
Yep, and to this day, she still remembers that.
Oh, yeah. So talk, do you ever wonder what he would think about how you ran the business after he passed?
Well, I would certainly hope that he was proud of most of what I did, because our volume increased considerably. When he died, we had it was he and I. We had one full-time young lady working and one part-time, and she was with the agency for, I got to think here, 20 years. She was here from 1952 to 1960. 72. All right. Or no, 82. So she was here 30 years.
Wow.
She was here until we computerized. And that's when she retired.
Okay.
And then I hired another individual. Well, no, then my wife, like I say, my wife had started part-time in 1979. So then after she left, and I hired another full-time. And then in 86 is when Dave came into the office. So then it was Dave, Kim, and I, and then it was my wife and two other women working here. And we did that up until, I guess, 1993, 94. The one young lady left. In fact, she left here and went to Washington, D.C. and works in the State Department today.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Wow. And
by that time, with the computerization and so on, we didn't have to replace her. So then it was 5 of us working in the office, and it was that way up until 2002, and my wife decided to retire. And again, because of the computerization and so on, because we had changed our system, we didn't hire a replacement for her. So then it was one female and Dave, Kim, and I.
Yeah. Talk about having a family and running a business. What was it like? What were some of the struggles and frustrations, and what were some of the rewards?
Well, fortunately, I had a wife, and I tell everyone this to this day, that if I'd have been married to me, I'd have divorced me a long time ago. But she was fantastic, is fantastic as far as that goes. We had 3 children, and I was active in a lot of organizations, plus the fact of being here in the office. So 7 days a week I was going. In fact, when our 3rd child was born, the first year she was on Earth, I was away from the house 36 weekends. Oh, because of organizations and so on. And my wife tried to leave me, but no one would take her in with 3 kids, and so we're together today. And so like I say, she's been fantastic. The good thing was her dad ran a service station. He was never home, so she wasn't used to a man being home. Yeah. That helped.
Yeah.
She raised our children, but I always tried to make every event that my kids were in, I tried to make it. Fortunately, there wasn't near the activities then that there is today. Today, there are just, we didn't have lacrosse, you didn't have soccer, you didn't have volleyball. You had basketball, football, and baseball, track. Those are the only sports that existed then. And fortunately, my kids didn't get into a lot of sports, so that helped too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and how's it been having Dave work with you?
Great. Yeah, he's been here, like I say, actually he started after graduating from high school. He got his license, and he worked here 3 out of the 4 summers he was in college. The one summer he got a job at AMP, and they were paying him 3 times what I was paying him, so I told him to take that job. But so he's been here full time since '86. Kim, as I mentioned, my father died in '78. Kim came here in December of 1978, and he's been here ever since. So between Dave and Kim, we increased the volume of the business considerably over those years. And I think hopefully that would be one reason my father would be proud of what has taken place in the agency. And I think the customer base, the customer relationships that Kim, Dave, and I encountered over the years and kept, and the values that were given to me, I think, yes, he'd be very proud of that part of it.
Good. All right, so you have been involved in countless organizations. Can you name a few? You can name all. I'm sure you could name them all. But tell me why you got involved in so many.
Well, as I say, this is the way I was brought up. My parents were involved in different organizations and so on. When I graduated from college, I had a lot of friends, they were young, because I joined the JCs. And that's a young men's organization, because at 36 they kicked you out. So, and it was young men's then. Now it's, they changed that in '78 or '79, that women can join now. But And that was an organization. They would run projects, and if you failed, it wasn't your money; it was their money. But I've learned a lot of good things out of the JCs, and I was in that till I was 36. I joined the Elks. Well, when I was 18 years old, I joined the fire company. I became an active fireman, and a lot of friends in the fire company belonged to the Elks, and they had free feeds and so on. So that sounded pretty good to me. So I joined the Elks for that reason.
And there was another benefit of the Elks. The drinks.
Well, yeah, it was known as a speakeasy because Red Line was dry. And they had a bar, so it was an illegal operation, but you could get a drink without going to York.
Yeah.
But I started through the careers there, and fortunately I became the youngest exalted rower they had in 1968. And I've been involved there. I've been an officer about 45 years out of the 57 I belong. The one thing I mentioned that my dad was instrumental in starting the library here in Red Line. And he was on the board from 1964 until he died in 1978. My mother took his place on the board in 1978, and she was on to 1984 when she died. So then I took her place on the board, and I was on the board from 1984 to 2005. And I was fortunate enough to serve as president for 11 years and be president when we built our new library where it is now. Excuse me. In 2005, I went off the board, and my son David went on the board. And he was on from 2005 to 2014. Now my nephew is on the board, and in fact, he's president of the library board right now. So in the past 53 years, there's been a Fishel on the board of directors of the Colorado Benford Library. And yeah, I've been I was on borough council for a couple of years. I happened to be mayor, fortunately, from 1974 to 1974 to 1982. I was mayor when we had the centennial in 1980, and that was sort of planned. And the reason I say that was planned was in 1968, when I was exalted at the Elks. That was the 100th anniversary of the Elks. In 1970, when I was president of the Red Line JCs, that was the 50th anniversary of the JCs. And I started thinking, well, now in 10 years, Red Line's going to have their 100th. Maybe now is the time to get involved in politics. And so that was planned a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I like that.
The fact that my father and mother were so involved in the community and so on, my last name helped.
Yeah. Now, could you imagine being involved in that many organizations and running a business in today's world?
No. I don't see how it would be possible.
Yeah.
Because of what it takes to run a business today.
Yeah.
And not if you want to be, up on everything.
Yeah.
And again, if you have any children of any kind, or even now grandchildren, I mean, I'm going to grandchildren things, and you just couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
Just couldn't be done.
Yeah.
And they say the young people don't want to get involved today. That isn't entirely true. Young people, if they have children, and they're involved with their time to get involved in an organization. And unfortunately, that's certain organizations.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, so you've been so involved with Red Lion for such a long time. Was there ever a golden period of Red Lion? And talk about it.
Yes, there was. Unfortunately, it was before my time. Mm-hmm. Red Lion basically was founded on tobacco. Every other household had somebody in the house making cigars. I tell the story of my mother. People used to say, well, what does your mother do? And I say, she's a stripper. And they, what? Well, she strips tobacco. She worked for Wolf Brothers Cigars for many, many years, and then she worked for the United States Tobacco Company also. But we had tobacco factories all over Red Line. And they're basically what made Red Line. Mm-hmm. And the second industry was our furniture. We had numerous furniture manufacturers. And I tell the story where my neighbor built a new house, went to New York City, bought his furniture, came home, and when it was delivered, he found out that a lot of it was made at Red Line Table Company right here in Red Line. So they made top-end furniture. So those are the two industries in Red Line, and they really peaked in the 50s and 60s, and then with the government regulations on tobacco and so on, of course, that started falling off. And when you had all your wholesale stores coming out with furniture and so forth, people weren't paying thousands of dollars for top-end furniture anymore, and that's what was manufactured here. So between that, it all hurt.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want the audience to know?
I wouldn't know what. And I appreciate you talking with me. Fortunately, Sarah would have spent the last few years with me. She would have heard all this 100 times.
It could be just me on the video, probably.
Because every time someone would come in here new and I'd start telling stories, Dave and Kim says, "Oh no, not again." So they've heard them so many times they can tell them better than I can, no doubt. But no, as you can see, I really enjoyed this business. I've enjoyed this community, and enjoyed all the people that I've met throughout the years. It's been fantastic, and I don't know. It's hard to retire. I want to tell you, it really is. It hasn't been pleasant, but I can say this: that the Keller-Brown agency has made it a lot easier for me. And I've appreciated everything they have done for me, for this agency, and I know what they'll do for our customers. That's I have no doubts about whatsoever.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. If someone was to watch this video in the future, what would you want them to glean from your time at H.N. Fishel and Associates? What would you want them to have a takeaway from this interview?
That basically our number one goal was our customers, and that our customers are all fantastic, and we tried to take care of them and please them as best as we could, and hopefully we did it.
All right. Anything else? One final chance before we turn this
I wouldn't
off.
know what else to mention this time. I thank Sarah for asking me to talk. As you can see, I have no problems talking about anything, and I enjoyed it. Like I say, I can't say enough about the Keller-Brown agency and what they have meant to this agency since they've taken over.
Well, Evans, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.